April 22nd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the South Korean government push for medical reform. The government stands firm on its stance despite calls from medical school chiefs to drop the plan to increase the medical school enrollment quota. The Presidential Special Committee on Medical Reform, a social consultative body that discusses medical reform tasks, will be launched on Tuesday. An Israeli offensive in Rafah may be on the way within the next few days. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hinted to put pressure on Hamas to get Israeli hostages out of the region. A much-needed U.S. military and economic aid is set to reach Ukraine as early as this week, after the House of Representatives approved $61 billion of war aid for Ukraine. The latest developments in the medical school enrollment quota dispute have seen neither side backing down. Doctors are refusing calls for talks without the possibility of a quota freeze on the table, while the government is prepared to launch a task force to discuss the issues with or without their representation. Our Moon Hae-dun reports.
The medical community and government have come to a stalemate once again, despite the government's attempts to facilitate discussions and allow some flexibility regarding their decision to increase the medical school quota. On Sunday, the deans of 40 medical schools across the country submitted a joint statement demanding that the medical school admissions quota for 2025 be kept as is without any increases. The Korean Medical Association and a group of medical school professors all backed this statement, along with junior school doctors taking the stance that no dialogue with the government can take place without the topic of a medical school quota freeze on the table. This comes just 2 days after Prime Minister Han Duck-soo announced that the government will allow each medical school to freely decide the number of students that can enroll for 2025, allowing schools to independently recruit between 50 and 100% of the previously suggested increased quota. As the need for conversation between the two sides grows, a special task force is due to launch on Thursday. The task force, made up of 6 government officials and 20 non-government officials, such as experts and representatives from doctors' groups, will discuss pivotal issues in the government's plans for medical reform. But the Korean Medical Association has rejected this call for talks, saying that the purpose and organization of the task force is not concrete and that it feels its opinions will not be heard. Junior doctors, the key personnel who have been staging mass walkouts, have not yet confirmed whether they will be sending representatives to the task force meeting. Even if doctors refuse to participate in a task force meeting this week, the government plans to push ahead with the task force. Meanwhile, resignations from medical school professors that were submitted last month in solidarity with junior doctors will take effect starting on Thursday. With concerns arising over further staff shortages at hospitals, the Health Ministry has extended the employment of 184 military and public doctors to ensure emergency medical treatment. Moon Hae-dun, Arirang News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hinted at launching an offensive in Rafah, emphasizing he would put military pressure on Hamas within the next few days to rescue his country's hostages. Lee Seung-ja has more.
During his Passover speech on Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that he would put military pressure on Hamas within the next few days to rescue Israeli hostages. The Israeli Prime Minister said that Hamas has rejected all offers to release hostages, adding that the military group has not backed down from its extreme positions. According to Netanyahu, military action is the only solution to rescue hostages.
Therefore, we will land additional painful blows on it, and it will happen soon. In the coming days, we'll increase the military and political pressure on Hamas, because this is the only way to free our hostages and achieve our victory.
While Netanyahu's remarks don't confirm the start of an operation in Rafah, the Times of Israel reported that the Israeli Army Chief of Staff approved a battle plan for the Southern Command on Sunday. Israel believes that the Hamas leadership is hiding in the Rafah region and that a military operation to enter Rafah is essential to end the war. However, the international community, including the United States, have been trying to deter Israel from taking such action, saying that an offensive in Rafah, where about 1.4 million Palestinian refugees have gathered, could lead to huge losses of civilian lives. Meanwhile, nearly 200 bodies were discovered in a mass grave inside Nasser Hospital compound in Khan Yunis. Palestinian authorities say the Israeli military is responsible for the mass grave, which included bodies of elderly women, children, and young men. The discovery follows another mass grave found at Al-Shifa Hospital last week. More than 34,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since the war began over 6 months ago. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
With the U.S. House of Representatives approving a $61 billion U.S. aid package for Ukraine on Saturday, the Senate is expected to advance the bill in the coming days ahead of President Joe Biden signing it into the law. U.S. Senator Mark Warner said in an interview with CBS News on Sunday. With the president expected to sign the bill on Tuesday or Wednesday, the U.S. could begin transferring long-range Army tactical missile systems to Ukraine by the end of the week. Warner said Washington has been preparing to provide ATACMS for the past several months, with the missile system support being specified in the budget bill. Now, the Democrat majority Senate is expected to pass the bill on Tuesday. Israel and Iran on Friday both appear to have played down an apparent Israeli airstrike near a major airbase and nuclear site in central Iran. Now, what's on their mind now? Let's turn to Professor Park Hyun-do for more. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Professor, let's delve into it. Why are the two sides keeping their cool now?
Well, they don't actually, both of them do not want any wider or bigger war anymore. And also with the high pressure from the United States, because United States doesn't want any bigger or wider war happening in the Middle East, as actually it is preparing for the election. So the political situation right now does not allow the bigger war or wider war to be taking place.
So the timing of the conflict is not in their favor at the moment. Now, it also appears that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had more things to gain than lose from the recent tensions with Iran, didn't he? I mean, especially with the military aid approvals by the U.S.
Well, definitely. Actually, Iran used to call, Iran has been calling the United States as a great Satan and Israel as a little Satan. And actually, Israel Israel was offended by the huge barrage of missiles and drones from Iran. And for Israelis, Iran is archfoe. And Netanyahu used to say that the biggest threat to the security of Israel is Iran. That is shared by all Israelis. So when Netanyahu was fighting against Iran, his approval rating it goes up. And the United States considers Iranian threat as a big security issue to the Israel. So now the United States they come forward to pouring huge amount of money to foreign aid to Israel. So the Netanyahu didn't lose anything, even though some of the military bases were destroyed by the Iranian forces. But nevertheless, his political life is actually strengthened, and also his popularity, particularly in his fight against Iran, goes up.
Definitely. The thing is, the tensions are yet to be tamed. And how likely is it that Israel and Iran will actually push ahead with a full war confrontation?
I don't think it is very probable or possible, because actually both sides, again, I like to emphasize, they do not want any bigger or wider war, because they will lose everything. But so-called shadow war, the using proxies for confrontation between these two, will continue. And also the Iran would not step down. Iran would support the proxies, so-called proxies. Those actually the military militias and military organizations in Lebanon and Iraq and Syria and Yemen. And at the same time, Israel would not stop providing assistance to the anti-Iranian government forces inside Iran. So so-called proxy wars between these two will continue.
So for both of them, more things to lose than gain for now. Also, the U.S. House of Representatives finally passed a bill for a $61 billion in new U.S. military aid for Ukraine. Now, what significance does it carry?
Well, it's a huge actual win for the President Zelensky of Ukraine. And at the same time, it's a huge actually the win for the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, because Israel got $26 billion and Ukraine got almost more than $61 billion, which is a huge amount of the foreign package. Even though actually in terms of the foreign aid to Ukraine is normally will be spent for the ammunitions and the firepowers, and definitely more like a indirect actually even though it is indirect investment, but it is more like a direct investment in United States defense system. Nevertheless, Zelensky was actually hungry for all these, particularly hungry for the help from the United States. So this may be a turning point in actually turning the tide of the war between Ukraine and Russia. But it will not actually help Ukraine to win the war. Probably it will help Ukraine to lose more territories to the Russian forces.
So are you saying that it's not going to be a game changer for Ukraine?
I'm very pessimistic about it.
Okay. Well, it still looks like Israel and Ukraine will once again feel the weight of the American support. Good things for now. All right, Professor Bagunda, thank you so much for your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
South Korea is set to shift the categorization of COVID-19 to endemic. Now, that means some of the last remaining mandatory safety measures will be dropped, including indoor mask requirements at hospitals. Our Kim Bo-kyung has more.
From alert to the lowest level of attention. Starting May 1st, South Korea will fully shift its COVID-19 status to endemic, lowering the disease in its 4-level crisis system from the second highest to the lowest. This decision comes more than 4 years after the first COVID-19 infection was identified on January 20th, 2020. The health authorities cited the country's stable situation with a low fertility rate and none of the particularly dangerous variants being detected as the reasons behind the decision.
COVID-19 is safely being managed. After we listened to experts' advice twice, last January and April, most of them agreed on the possibility of lowering the crisis level.
According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, the number of new COVID-19 patients in the second week of April was 22,083, a sharp drop from the 47,005 reported in the first week of March. Another reason behind the decision was that no other new variant, except for the JN.1, which made up more than 83% of new cases, has been detected. As South Korea fully shifts to an endemic approach, some of the remaining mandatory safety measures will no longer be applied. The mandatory indoor mask requirement that remained for hospitals and other infection-vulnerable facilities will be lifted, as will be the preemptive COVID-19 tests that were required for people entering such facilities. Quarantining for 24 hours is still recommended for patients after their main symptoms dissipate. Additionally, government coverage of associated medical costs will end, no longer paying for COVID-19 tests or the hospitalization of severely ill patients. Patients will also have to partly pay for Paxlovid, an oral antiviral pill, except for those in low-income groups. COVID-19 vaccine will be freely given to everyone through the 2024 flu season, but afterward, coverage will be limited to high-risk groups, including people aged 65 and over, and those with compromised immune systems. Lastly, government-level response organizations such as the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters, which has been overseeing COVID-19 related measures since its outbreak, will be disbanded. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
This past Saturday marked Disabled Persons Day here in South Korea. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin spoke with a K-pop group who made their debut that day, whose passion and commitment have already begun to inspire others.
어텐션, 매일 오션입니다. 잘 부탁드립니다.
The name Big Ocean reflects their desire to spread hope and positivity like the feeling you get when gazing at the ocean. All three members, Ji-seok, Hyunjin, and Chanyeon, have hearing impairments. Ji-seok was born with a disability while Hyunjin and Chanyeon experienced partial hearing loss at a young age. They can hear with the help of hearing aids and cochlear implants, but singing and dancing require a whole new level of perseverance and dedication.
We all interpret the bounce, feeling, and beat of a song differently, so it was a bit chaotic at first. Trying to harmonize with each other was challenging, but we worked hard to find a way to blend our differences together.
Since I have difficulty hearing, learning a new song from scratch is tough, so I keep listening to it repeatedly to become more familiar with it. Even then, it can be a struggle to grasp the beat correctly and match the tone and volume of the other members. In those cases, our staff helps out.
After a year and a half of training, they're debuting with their single Light, a remake of first-generation K-pop boy group H.O.T's song of the same title. Their disabilities don't hinder their performances thanks to cutting-edge technology like light and vibrating metronomes. With these, mastering K-pop synchronized sophisticated dance moves is not a problem.
We first converted the sound into a beat vibration through the smartwatch, and also we synced it to the flashing light so that they can see the screen and feel the music with the flashing lights. In this way, they were able to feel the music more clearly, and they later tried to come up with some grooves and bounces too.
What sets Big Ocean apart isn't just their historical debut as the first K-pop group where all members have hearing impairments. They're also inspiring change.
Even with cochlear implant surgery, keeping up with the rhythm and hitting the right pitch is challenging. I think Big Ocean's incredible efforts will prove that disabilities don't confine the realm of arts, especially singing.
That's exactly what Big Ocean hopes to do. Show that music is for everyone and passion knows no limits.
저희 빅오션 그룹 앞으로 활동을 통해서 많은 사실 이제 청각 장애뿐만 아니라 다른 장애를 가지고 있는 많은 분들이 계시잖아요. 용기를 좀 더 내서 본인이 하고 싶은 일을 또 하셨으면 좋겠고. 매일 오셨습니다. 감사합니다.
송유진, 아리랑 뉴스.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn over to stories from around the world. We begin today in the US, where the House of Representatives passed a bill on Saturday that could lead to social media platform TikTok being banned in the country. The legislation would ban the use of social media platform unless its Chinese owner, ByteDance, sells its stake within a year. TikTok on Sunday reacted by expressing concern about the free speech rights of 170 million Americans. US lawmakers labeled the app a potential security risk over fears that the data of American users could be shared with the Chinese government. TikTok insists that it has never shared US data and it never will. A vote in the House in March gave ByteDance about 6 months to divest its US assets or face a ban, with the deadline extended due to the latest vote. President Joe Biden has previously said he would sign such a bill into law. Now to China, where flooding caused by the days of heavy rain in the southern province of Guangdong has triggered an urgent emergency response from the government to protect the 127 million people living in the region. Aerial footage on China's state media CCTV showed multiple villages and farmland underwater as the average rainfall in the province exceeded 120 millimeters in the 3 days leading up to Sunday. Almost 20,000 people in the Qingyuan city have already been evacuated, while classes at some schools have been suspended. The province's Xizang and Beijiang rivers hit their highest water levels in 50 years. As of Sunday, 24 rivers in the region exceeded flood warning water levels as China's National Disaster Prevention Authority issued a Level 3 emergency advisory. The World Anti-Doping Agency confirmed on Saturday that 23 Chinese swimmers tested positive for a banned substance before the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, but it accepted China's explanation that the results were due to contamination. 23 members of China's 30-member swimming team tested positive for trimetazidine found in heart medication months before the COVID-delayed Tokyo Games in July 2021, where China won 6 medals for swimming, including 3 golds. According to the Chinese anti-doping agency CHINADA, the athletes were exposed to the banned drug through tainted food. Investigators said that many of China's top swimmers stayed at a hotel in 2020 and 2021, where trace amounts of the substance were found in the kitchen. The U.S. anti-doping agency has criticized WADA's findings. Kenyan Olympic champion Peres Jepchirchir broke the women's only world record as she claimed victory at the 44th London Marathon on Sunday. The 30-year-old 2020 Tokyo Olympics marathon gold medalist ran the 42.195 kilometers in 2 hours, 16 minutes and 16 seconds to break Mary Keitani's previous record of 2 hours, 17 minutes and 1 second. In the men's marathon, her Kenyan compatriot, 27-year-old Alexander Mutiso Munyao, was the winner, crossing the finish line in 2 hours, 4 minutes and 1 second.
Good morning. Cloudy skies are again covering much of the country with some spotty rain expected. East of Gyeongsangdo, Jeollado provinces, as well as Jeju Island will see on and off rain through late this afternoon. So please keep a small umbrella handy in case of rain. It will be cloudy all day, but central regions will see highs going up much higher than yesterday, while the East Coast will continue to see breezy highs this afternoon, hovering in the mid-teens. For a closer look, Seoul gets up to 25, while Daegu tops out at 19 degrees Celsius this afternoon, which is a couple of degrees higher than yesterday. Normal to good air quality is expected all day nationwide today. Then another band of rain is in the forecast for tomorrow, starting from Jeju and spreading to the rest of the southern regions and east of Gangwon-do. Wednesday could be a rainy one for many places. The sun makes a return on Thursday and should stay with us through the weekend. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Tuesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's April 22nd here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Cheska Dainhong.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday. And Jo Yeon-woo.
Happy Monday.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Exercising regularly is important, but excessively working out can take a toll on your joints regardless of how old you are. According to a report released by the Sport Safety Organization, those in their 20s and 30s surprisingly had weak joints as if they were in their 60s. The study analyzed the cause of these weak joints to be vigorous exercise like yoga, Pilates, and hiking without proper stretching beforehand. 1 out of 3 people surveyed in the study reportedly did not do any pre-stretching exercises. SM Entertainment and Kakao Games Corp recently signed a partnership to create a mobile game featuring their artists' intellectual property. The game, tentatively named Game Station, is set to be launched globally in the second half of this year. Users will be able to manage artists' schedules, promote new albums and projects, and nurture new K-pop idols in the game. We've already seen many K-pop idol-related games in the past, showcasing stars like BTS and Blackpink. Industry insiders pointed out that though they have a buzz in popularity momentarily, they fail to hold on to longtime users, mainly because the game seemingly failed to find the middle ground between satisfying fans while being entertaining as games themselves. And the Korean occult thriller Exuma is receiving criticism from animal rights activists for using actual animals and their carcasses in its production. The Korea Animal Rights Advocates on Friday said they asked the movie's producer and distributor Showbox whether any actual animals were harmed. In the movie, 2 shamans, a feng shui expert and mortician, performed a shamanistic gut ritual that requires killing, stabbing, and slitting animals. And Kara found out the production used 5 pig carcasses. They were then used in the scene where actress Kim Go-eun stabs them as a sacrifice to the supernatural beings. And actual fish were also found to be used in the scene where they were thrown on the ground as live bait. And the production explained that they returned all the pig carcasses and live animals, including chickens and dogs, to either their owners or rental organizations after filming. As for the fish, though, they said some were put back in water after filming, but some died due to the filming delays. And Kara has since condemned the production and urged officials to create guidelines for safely using animals in media production. Now, Exuma has been a popular hit movie in Korea, and I don't know if you've seen it, Hyunwoo, but there were a lot of animals that appeared. So as a viewer, what do you think about this news story, and what are your thoughts on the whole unraveling of animal rights activists?
Right, it's definitely unfortunate that carcasses and live animals were used in the production of this film, and especially in the absence of any guidelines during its production. But I can still understand why the producers had to make such a decision in the first place, because, you know, while they could use computer graphics, it does help with adding a sense of realism, I guess, for both the producers and actors. I know that for some movies, actors or producers will refuse to use any computer graphics and always try to stick to the real thing. But for the case of animals, I guess there could be some debate and conflicts between keeping artistic liberty and also respecting ethical standards for animals. So in the future, it's probably best that, you know, they implement responsible guidelines with working with these animal rights organizations.
And do keep in mind, this is just like a fact of the day. The movie industry does have guidelines from 2020. A lot of them had interviews with animal rights activists as to what to do to ethically perform all these production when it includes actual animals. But the thing is, there's no regulations or penalties in regards to what should happen if anyone goes against them, which is why animal rights activists are calling for the government to take action. Now, Cheska, what are your thoughts on this story?
You know, it's a very tricky issue, and for someone who has actually made a movie, I do understand why some directors and producers do choose to use something that might be controversial for the purpose of the artistry. However, at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, is that art exists to serve humanity at the end of the day. So if there are ways that we can maneuver in terms of using synthetic, computer graphic, or even prosthetic to replace harming the world, including animals and humans in the future, I think that would be something that would be more highly advised in terms of the development of the art itself. As for regulation, I completely understand that they have guidelines, and sometimes it is hard not to, you know, have people sort of follow through or even check if they are. I really hope that there is regulation and maybe some follow through to see if they are ethically following these rules to make something that might benefit the humanity.
We need to better monitor whether this is actually happening at the scenes. But then again, it is understandable, and I think you can agree as a movie producer yourself, sometimes the scene is just so busy and bustling and you're so short on time. But I do think this is something that we need to be more attentive about. Now, switching gears to our main discussion topic of the day, did you know today is IT Day, Information Technology Day in South Korea, where we commemorate how far our science and tech advancements have come in the country. And speaking of ICT and tech, we're going to be talking about the chatting apps that have been booming here in the country. And KakaoTalk is one of the most popular messenger apps in South Korea. But recently, as we've also covered in our newsfeed before, there has been an exodus of users. So Cheska, why don't we start there?
Yeah, this was a very shocking revelation for me because I am a very avid Kakao user.
Yeah, me too.
We chat on Kakao as well. And given that Kakao is the #1 messaging app here in South Korea, the fact that there has been some exodus of users was very shocking. Now, according to the data and analysis solution, KakaoTalk's monthly users fell below 45 million for the first time in 22 months since March. Now, that's a 2 million drop from March last year. Now, if you know the Korean's national messenger history, we would like to walk you through. It started from MSN, then went to Genie, then Say Club, and I think around this time people might be familiar with this word, the buddy buddy, with a little character, and then Naton, and now the Kakao has become obviously the #1 messenger here in South Korea. I think a lot of the things, the reason that a lot of users have, diverted to other is because the Gen Z and MZ generation are diversifying their messaging option. As we'll talk about more, Instagram is there, Facebook is there, WhatsApp. So people are trying to diversify their messaging, and hopefully we'll be able to talk more about it.
But there is a concept in Korea called 국민 app, and in English it means like an app that all Koreans or the public seems to be using, and KakaoTalk has definitely solidified its position there. But Hyunwoo, weren't you quite fascinated to find out that not a lot of people are using this app anymore?
Right, yeah. So what we're really seeing is, I guess, a diversification of messenger apps and social media as people look for kind of different platforms to use depending on their use cases. And as a Korean, KakaoTalk still takes up a large portion of how I reach out and talk to others. But today, it almost feels like the primary reason that I use KakaoTalk is because of the sheer number of people that use it in Korea. No matter who you're talking to, they'll probably have KakaoTalk on their phone.
Right.
And so for general communication purposes, KakaoTalk is still, it does the job perfectly fine. But I think that a lot of people have moved on to other platforms because it fits their needs much better. And look at Instagram, for example, which allows you to share and post content with each other, and Telegram or WhatsApp, which have far more global audiences than KakaoTalk.
Right, and as you mentioned, just because a lot of people are using it, I think you naturally feel the need to download it yourself, because what better way to communicate with someone than using that common option out there? And KakaoTalk, in the same survey, I saw it as well, they said that a lot of people use it at the workplace, so it's really hard for us to substitute it. But nonetheless, we are seeing a diversification of chatting apps and messenger apps out there, which is exactly why I'm curious as to ones that you guys personally opt for. What are some ones that are gaining a lot of popularity among our generation?
Oh, okay. Before we get into that, I would like to personally confess that I'm sort of the older generation when it comes to using Messenger's app. Not that I am, but my preference, because I use what Koreans might not be so familiar with. So the two that I use is WhatsApp and LinkedIn.
Right.
So I know people see these two apps are more in a professional way, and when I want to communicate with people and talk about business or even just building connection, I use these two and then give them my ID. And as some viewers have already noticed, I display my LinkedIn ID instead of my Instagram. So for me, Instagram and Facebook is more for casual meetups or like casual connections with friends, or sending like cute memes or like posts. And I have a lot of startup friends that actually use Telegram because the storage space, I heard, is very extensive. Now, a lot of MZers now use Snapchat to communicate a lot because they can send photos and connect with friends. And another thing that I found very interesting that is coming up right now that I Googled right before coming on, they do a lot of voice messaging these days as well. Yeah.
Because it must be a little lazy for them to type everything down.
Yeah. Now they're trying to make it easy and quick as possible. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of voice recording myself because sometimes I prefer calling. Maybe I'm an old millennial too.
You can come to my side.
I know there's this concept where MZers have phone phobia, but I don't have phone phobia. I would rather much prefer hearing someone's voice and talking via voice message. But it's quite interesting to find out that there's so many more options out there. And among those options, which ones are your favorite and what seems to be booming in popularity among our generation?
You know, that's actually really interesting to hear. I didn't really know about the voice messaging thing. Maybe it's just me falling behind the times.
Well, you are a Gen Z,
That is true. But,
come on, Hyuna, you have to keep up.
Yeah, I'm going to have to try my best at this. But, you know, looking at a lot of my Korean friends, I think we used to, you know, use a lot of Facebook Messenger because it was the time where most people had Facebook accounts already and used it to share posts with other friends, which is, I guess, a pretty stark difference to how Facebook is viewed in, you know, countries like the US, for example, where Facebook is seen as a platform for old people, to put it kind of harshly. And when Instagram came along, that kind of, I guess, felt trendier and more genuine with features like stories that really appealed to, you know, a wide range of people. And I think, I would say for me and my friends, it's the Messenger app that we used the most to this day. And it's really not Instagram that we only use. Personally, I've used like Discord, which is a community-based messaging app. For meeting new friends that have common interests and common groups. And it's like the modern return of like chat groups or like forums. And I've seen more and more people use it over the years.
So based on my analysis, based on your two answers, I think because you can share your reality or daily lives via picture or video on these new apps and then instantly reply with a meme or an emoji or any chats, I think that's what seems to be a distinctive trait that's grabbing the attention of millennials and Gen Z these days. But what are some other traits?
Yeah, I really love the point that you made. I think it has a lot to do with our characteristic of wanting to share our personal lives, but in a way that is as interesting and entertaining as possible. So it comes in the form of emojis, it comes in the form of like links, it comes in the form of AI technology. So I think when it comes to MZers, that's definitely one of the characteristics. Another thing I think is they're not afraid to diversify their options. Meaning that if I can't fulfill my needs in one, they're willing to give other apps an option. So instead of just having Kakao to send messages or send photos, if perhaps they like to play games, they would rather have a Discord where they can have a community of people that they can connect very quickly.
I think it also has to do with how much you can immerse with them. Like, it's a community, right? So you can share the same post and then talk about it. You guys can add your own reels to it, your own replies. I think that's another play culture among our generation. Now, Hyuna, would you like to add on to this question?
Sure. I think that a big part of the, I guess, the culture that a lot of the MZ generation, as we call it, share is that a big part of it is the generational disparity that comes with it as well. Looking at like iMessage, for example, I've seen a lot of my friends actually move over from like Androids to iPhones because of what we call the green bubble versus blue bubble debate. You have phones using, you know, iPhones exactly, where they see their messages sent to other iPhones using blue bubbles, but Android phones are seen as green bubbles. You know, because young people tend to use iPhones, there's a divide depending on the generation, on what phone you use, even a tendency to actually, you know, when looking for like a partner, for example, they prefer people using iPhones. So it's definitely an interesting cultural and generational divide that we're seeing nowadays as well.
I see. So there is that tendency to know that if the younger generation is using it, so will we. So these are some distinctive traits that can get more people onto these new social media apps out there, or messenger apps. Now, we asked our viewers to also share their favorite messenger apps and what traits they have to make them use them on a daily basis. If you take a look at the screen, you can find out what 3 of them had to share with us. Let's start with Benny. Benny said, "For me, still Facebook Messenger and Instagram from Meta are probably some of the top chatting apps in the Philippines, perhaps the way they're super talkative and sharing stories and gossip." Leon said, in Singapore, the most used chatting app is WhatsApp. One of the core functionalities is that sending and receiving text messages, photos, videos, and voice notes are all free of charge as long as you have internet connection. Also, you can create group chats for communication with multiple people, and the app follows for voice and video calls. Bora said, "For me, still Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. However, I'll try Kakao Talk and others just to learn Korean." And based on what Bora just told us, you can really tell that Kakao Talk is a booming and one of the most popular chatting apps here in Korea. Now, we're going to turn to a fellow Gen Z from France to hear what type of chatting apps are gaining popularity there. Stay tuned for a live interview. We're now going to talk to Marie Clements-Horticott, a Gen Z living in France. Welcome, Marie.
Hello.
All right, Marie, we've been talking about the most popular app here in Korea, which is KakaoTalk, but our generation seems to be using a diverse amount of them. So could you first explain to us what the most popular or common messenger app is in France at the moment and why that's the case?
I think that nowadays the most common chatting app here in France is Instagram. It used to be Snapchat for a long time, but now it's mostly teenagers or middle schoolers. But I still have it, but it's not really the hype right now. I think it shows the willingness of the users to share their lives, as you said, and their faces in real time to their friends or even to someone else. And sadly, it created a lot of expectations and a lot of complexes. And that's why you can see a lot of beauty filters on these apps too. However, we still use WhatsApp and messengers as much as you, I guess. But they are used for very different purposes, such as group chats, family group chats, friend group chats, or even formal conversations with your work. And we can also note the growth in the Discord community since the 2020 lockdown, but it's mainly for gaming.
So we're also curious because our generation are definitely not afraid to diversify, as you mentioned, into many different messenger apps. So what are some distinctive traits in the popularly used messenger apps that our generation, including yourself, are looking for?
I think that there are three major things to think about when you're looking for a new app. And the first one is the appearance. It has to be pretty, and it has to have pretty functionalities such as backgrounds or cute emojis that you can customize according to your personality or your mood of the day. The second one will be also about functionalities, but it has to be easy to understand and easy to use. The best example would be to be easy to send a file and to find it maybe 1 year later on the same conversation. And same goes for photos, videos, or even messages you've sent in this conversation. And the last one, as you said, is the voice notes. We communicate a lot by that. And it's a must nowadays to be able to communicate really fast without having to type your message. And I think that luckily, most apps have this functionality now.
All right, and Hyun-Soo, would you like to ask the last question?
Sure. I think you've raised a lot of, important traits for a lot of the messenger apps that, millennials and Gen Z, including yourself, look for. Any updates or new features that you'd like to see in these apps? Or, what do you think would be needed to better use messenger chat apps from our generation?
From my point of view, I think that KakaoTalk is a good example to take, because they have a lot of different emojis that you can buy from small businesses to send in your conversation, and it's really cute and really funny to have. Also, they have an easy to use and really pretty interface, I think, with voice notes, which represent the three things that I search the most on every chatting apps. But at the end of the day, I think the most important here is the safe place the app has to create. We have to feel safe while chatting. And regarding the use of these different apps, I think that the key is to use them for different purposes, such as Snapchat, Instagram, and KakaoTalk for chatting with friends, sending memes and publications. Sometimes Kakao can be used for work businesses, I guess, too. And WhatsApp and messengers are sometimes for group chats, I guess, here in France with your friends, your family, or sometimes your workplace. And we also use a lot Twitter for news and trends, I guess, but also for chatting, and a lot of Discord for gaming, as I do with my friends. But I think that if we manage to separate each of these apps, we will gain a lot of time and we'll be able to dissociate our different environments.
So it's quite fascinating to hear that you don't want to see like a new app come out. You just want to see better classification as to when we use different apps for different scenarios. And you mentioned a great point there. I think the common thing that we're all looking for is safety and security. We don't want our data or privacy to be leaked in any way. And hopefully with the advent of such chatting apps coming about and developing, we'll see more of that. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Maria. It was a pleasure hearing from you today.
Thank you too.
All right. And Marie from France really pointed out all the different types of qualities we're looking for chatting apps out there. But I'd like to ask our panelists before we end off what type of chatting apps or traits they would like to see boom in popularity from now on.
I mean, she brought up some really good points, but obviously whatever the app is, security and privacy, I think, is #1 issue. But when it comes to the future, I think sort of the polarization in the Messenger app, meaning I think there's going to be definitely a growth of the metaverse that has been coming a lot. Meaning that it's not so much a messenger app, but it's more of the platform or the space that the communication actually takes place. Meaning that people will probably take on different identities, different characteristics, and try to communicate on the metaverse level, probably would be one. The other one, which is I think kind of my personal hope, is that we go a bit more old-fashioned. And we go back to like trying to connect with people more, and then try to spend even less time on the messenger app and actually meet people in person.
I know, that seems to be key, but it's so hard to do given the fact that we're on our phones every day. It's like another part of our body, basically. Hyuna, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that big name messenger apps, you know, like KakaoTalk, Instagram, are definitely here to stay, but there will be more messenger apps that fill various niches and various use cases that will be trending in the future. People will probably get used to, you know, using multiple chat apps for different purposes, but one trend that has already boomed and I see will continue to boom is AI. People can now talk to, you know, chatbots and messengers at any time of the day without waking up their friends at the middle of the night, which have their own like personalities and appearances too, like real people. And there's tools that also help you with like your tone and formality when talking to your boss or your professor, for example. And these can help with kind of the conversational tools that you use in everyday, you know, life. And some of these developments are, you know, in a way, definitely technological advancements that should be appraised and applauded for. But they're also worrying because we're increasingly moving away from, you know, talking to other people, starting from face-to-face to even online now. So hopefully I see, and hopefully I want to see these technologies being used for good use in the future.
And I think that point aligns with what you just said, Cheska, that you want to see more interpersonal communication, but the advent of AI might be hampering that, right?
And as Hyuna mentioned, there are definitely benefits to it because now they're installing these AI chatbots for elderly who live alone or people who do not have the opportunity to actually go out and meet person. But one thing that I would like to add is even the messenger apps and the AI technology do advance, the AI technology itself has to be fueled by human knowledge and how we interact with human beings. So I do hope that even with the development of AI, the level of humanity and the humanitarian connection do also increase at the same time.
I agree. And I think the message today is no matter what app you use, just realize that what are we doing this for? It's just to communicate with either your friends or family, share a little glimpse of your life with your loved ones. So at the end of the day, safety is always key, data privacy is key, and all these cool different functions are very important as well. But understanding that you're communicating with an actual person seems to be a very important part, and hopefully that all apps really understand the essence of that. Now, in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Cheska Dainang.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
And Joanna.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
Children's laughter, hope, dream, K-animation belongs in them. Interesting and valuable story that transcends between everyday life and dream. Surprising spectacle where imagination becomes real. An array of subjects catering from infants to adolescents. For our story to reach all corners of the world. K-animation makes healthy laughter for children.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, who's mine? Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토 스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?